Welcome back, everybody. I'm having fun talking to Charlotte Larsen. She's an executive producer and an actress who's been all over the world, in New Zealand, in UK. Now she's in LA, and she's in her car. So thank you for taking the time to meet up with me, Charlotte.
Yes, thank you. The apartment I'm staying in right now is a little noisy with people going around, so this is my quiet space.
No, that's lovely, and we get a nice cloud view. It's very pretty. So yeah,
Thanks. Yeah,
cinematography on the show has improved just by being
absolutely.
there. Perfect. Well, so in kind of doing my research on you, I saw one of your quotes, which intrigued me and kind of got me in the right framing. And I want to read your quote, and then I want to ask you about it. So you mentioned that working as an actor gives me a chance to become someone else, to get insight into other people, and to learn about the human condition. So I know you started as an actor, then went into producing, and then came back to acting. We'll get through all of that in a minute. But
Right.
to your quote, is that why acting is interesting for you? Because it allows you to be somebody else and to gain insight into other people's perspectives?
Yeah, absolutely. I think everyone, regardless of whether you're an actor, as human beings, we're fascinated with other people, and especially nowadays there's less and less human connection. There's less like taking the moment to get to know people, and it's all about being on your phone and all about social media, and being an actor is first of all, when you're developing a character, or the way that I develop a character is I really delve into what their purpose is, why they're doing what they're doing, and that involves a lot of the other characters around them as well. How does that influence, how did their childhood influence what they're doing now? And yeah, I think definitely being able to kind of just look into the psychology of people, look into the society and how that affects people, and being a different character as well is so exciting because I'm never going to be an astronaut. That's something that's never going to happen, but I can play one, and I get to be one for a week or a month or whatever it is, and explore that without actually having to go to space school and all that. And then the next week, I can travel back in time, and I can be in 1800s London, in Victorian London, and exploring different time periods as well, not just like different occupations and people's situations. But the great thing about being an actor is that you can be one thing one day, and then the next you're something else, and you're learning so much about the human condition as you go, it's so exciting and really, really fascinating.
I completely agree, and that's why your quote resonated with me because I find that acting allows me to live more than one life in a lifetime,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the fascinating part, and just being able to put yourself in circumstances outside of what you normally would be able to
Mm-hmm.
is fascinating. I did discover, and I don't know if that's the same thing with you, is initially to me acting was all about being someone else. And there was a period of my life where I didn't want to be anybody else. I wanted to be myself. And I actually
Mm-hmm.
stopped acting at that point until later I realized that it goes deeper. And when you're acting, you are being somebody else, but you're really just discovering more things about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of completed the circle for me. Where are you on that?
Yeah, so I studied at Stella Adler Academy here in LA.
Yep.
And yeah, like I'd done a little bit of acting before, and it was like school play, and a little in college and that kind of thing. And I started at Stella Adler, and I really learned not just the technique of where to stand and what you do, and developing characters and all that, but I also really learned, and this goes back to the quote that I said before about learning about the human condition. I learned about myself, and I'm like, wow, okay, this is what it means to be a human being. This is what it means to be a woman in the 2000s, and this is what it means to be where I am right now in life, and this time in the world of evolution of human beings.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just yeah, as an actor, you really do learn a lot about yourself as you develop, as you know, you're acting, you develop yourself as well. And you know, you develop your empathy, and you develop your compassion, and you understand people and other, you know, through your characters.
Mhm.
And you just have, you know, that greater understanding that we were talking about before, you know, really makes you appreciate things that you wouldn't have necessarily known about yourself before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I frequently, or at least at the moment, go back to something that I read in one of the spirituality books that talks about, you know, what God is, and it
Mhm.
talks about the energy, and it talks about that all of us are part of it, and God expresses and learns about itself through us and our experiences. So, you know, on a much more granular level, in a way, that's what we're doing during acting. We're learning about ourselves by experiencing us in different in different scenes, in different characters. So it's a fascinating thing to kind of explore. But I definitely found that I have a lot more compassion and empathy and understanding of other humans just by being an actor and exploring and experiencing these aspects.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, you know, even if you don't want to be an actor, even if that's not, you know, something that you want to pursue as a career, you know, taking acting classes for, you know, lawyers and doctors and, you know,
Yes.
anyone, you know, I think, you know, that's, it's a really helpful and, you know, necessary in some ways, thing that, you know, I truly believe that everyone should be taking acting classes, even if you don't want to be acting. Is like, you know, it's scary. It gets you out of your comfort zone, especially like when I started at Stella Adler, day one was up on my feet doing something in front of the class. And I'm like, I don't even know what I'm doing right now, but you know, it's a safe place to fail.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I think it grows you as a person and your confidence, you know, getting up in front of people. And I think those are skills that are, you know, worth having for in any occupation and any walk of life.
Yeah, especially now, and you've mentioned that we're spending so much time on our phones, we're spending it beyond
Mm-hmm.
computers, even our communication. You know, I have a 16-year-old daughter, and they're so excited about the new app, which allows them to record their voice and then send a message as a text, but it's a voice text. So they're
Mm-hmm.
waiting for each other to respond. And my question to her is, why don't you just talk to each other? And I
Right.
get this like, no, Dad, what? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
seriously?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I completely agree with you. I think improv is another thing that people need to take from every walk of life, regardless of what it is that you're doing. You should at
Yeah.
least take a few months of improv. It'll just help open you up.
Yeah. I mean, I did improv at Stella Adler. I took 2 terms of it, and it's, I mean, that's something that I'm not great at. Um, Improv's not my thing. I'm like, give me the lines and I'll say them.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think, you know, improv is really gets you out of your comfort zone as well. You know, you have to think on your feet and so on. And yeah, I think any of the classes that you can take as an actor, and you know, I'm biased because of, you know, I love Stella Adler, and that's where I went, and it's such a great school. Everyone there is like family.
Yeah.
um yeah, so I'm always going to shout them out, and you know, tell people to go and there. But you know, any acting class, whether it's a voice class, which is really helpful for, you know, especially if you're doing a lot of public speaking or anything like that, it's, you know, it's connecting to your voice. And people are like, but I know how to talk. And it's like, well, you know, this is a really important thing to learn, because you understand, oh, it's not just about, you know, opening my mouth and making noises. There's a lot more to it. It's all about breath and connection to your body, and you know, things like that. So you know, any class that an actor takes, whether it's voice or, you know, just a technique class, or even just something to, you know, like a Shakespeare class or a scene study class, or you know, anything like that, a movement class. You know, people go to the school and they're like, why am I need to take a movement class? Like, I'm an actor. I'm, you know, this is, you know, weird. And you know, you take the class and then you go, oh, now I get it.
Yeah.
This is important, and I really love what I'm doing. Um, so yeah, I think anyone who's not, you know, not even an actor, just take a class just to kind of get out there and, you know, connect to your voice, connect to your body, connect to your mind. You know, it's all connected, and very useful in any way of life.
Absolutely agree. I actually want to talk to you a little bit more about the Stella Adler approach in a second, but I'll,
Great.
I'll I'll offer this in terms of improv. You know, you being a producer, you being an executive producer, you're working on
Mhm.
multiple projects. I think you live improv. So you say that you're not good at it, but I think that's what you're doing on a daily basis anyway.
Yeah, I try, like, as a producer, there's certain, I guess routine, certain, okay, we're in this stage of production, so this is now what we're going to be doing. We're going to be doing contracts, we're going to be dealing with SAG, we're going to be dealing with casting, we're going to be dealing with distribution. So, there's kind of a process. But yeah, like, part of my job is to troubleshoot and, put out all the fires that might arise. So there are things that happen and you go, oh, I don't know how to deal with that. What do I do now? And then you kind of have to think on your feet and try and solve that problem. So yeah, you're kind of improving a little bit in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go back to Stella, and then I'm going to
Absolutely.
spend some time on producing in a few minutes. But
Yeah.
there are many different approaches, right? And
Hmm.
what have you found? Because I know that you've gone through a number of acting schools.
Hmm.
What have you found that makes Stella Adler's approach your home?
Well, first of all, like the technique I really resonated with. There are techniques where you have to use your memory and put yourself in there and you go, if you're doing a scene where say, your father died, you're putting real life experience of that into the scene because you have to go, okay, well, my dog died, so and I was really sad, so I'm going to remember when my dog died to make myself sad for my for the scene where my father died.
Mhm.
And there becomes a point where if you do that enough, you kind of become numb to that pain and that feeling because you've kind of overworked it.
Yeah.
And that can be dangerous in a few ways, but some people find that works for them, and that's great if that's how they work. I think that's great if you're doing a film for sort of a couple of months, but if you're doing 8 shows a week on Broadway and you're doing it for several years, there becomes a point where you can't get that feeling anymore.
Yeah.
And I think there was a famous example. I think it was Al Pacino was doing Hamlet on stage, and he was using that sense memory, and he became so into it that he actually saw his dead father. Hamlet sees the ghost of his dead father, and Al Pacino actually saw his dead father in the middle of the production and had a breakdown, and they had to stop the show. I'm not sure if that's true, but it's a story that I did hear. But it's kind of an example that if that's what you do, that can happen. But with Stella, her technique is all about imagination and creating the character. So, and I mentioned this before with creating character. If you have a character, you go and look at everything that affects them, everything that's mentioned in the play or the script or the film or whatever it is, and there are things that are in the script that specifically tell you, this person grew up in the 50s and is an only child, and there are facts of the play that you find out.
Mhm.
There are reactions that people have to this character as well, so other characters like this person or they don't like this person, or this is your brother or whatever. But then by doing a lot of work and a lot of background on your own, so creating stuff that's not known or figured out, what is their favorite color, what is their first memory, did they have a pet growing up, all that kind of information feeds your character, and then in turn feeds you as an actor, because when you get to the point where you have enough information, you don't have to think, oh, what is my character doing, why do they think this, because it's already in you. And that point you can get to the lines and just say the lines and you understand why you're saying them,
Mhm.
and how you got to that point. So I think Stella's technique is it's a lot of work, but it's really worthwhile. I think the reward you get from doing the work it's such a great feeling, and you just become such a great actor from doing this.
Yeah. I heard very good things about Stella's approach,
Hmm.
and I agree with you. Imagination is, in my opinion, again, everybody has their own method, but in my
Absolutely.
opinion, imagination is a far better way to do things than use substitution or or go back and use existing memories. In psychology, I'm not a psychologist.
Mm.
In psychology, one of the ways to deal with traumatic experiences is to go through them and talk about them, because once you go to that place, then they don't hold as much weight. So it would stand to reason that when you're doing that in acting and you're going to that memory again and again and again, it's not going to have the same effect on you because you were letting it go. And
Mm.
it won't have that same charge. I found that in my own acting. I was doing a scene. My audience is saying, "Okay, dude, you keep on talking about this all the time." But I was doing a scene in which, for that character, his daughter committed suicide. So I have a daughter. It was easy for me to imagine what happens if my daughter, God forbid, does
Mm-hmm.
something like that. Tears come immediate, great. But what happens on take two? It's less. Take three, I didn't have any tears, and I just didn't feel like I was getting there. Take four,
Mm.
it was okay. Take five was I was back again. So it's like it was so teeter totter that it didn't really work
Mm-hmm.
as a technique, and I didn't enjoy it because
Yeah.
thinking about your own daughter is not good. So yeah, I agree. Imagination is better.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like, there are people who are, method actors or whatever, and that's great, but it's like, you don't have to be a serial killer to play one. So, it's like, you can pretend and, imagine what that would be like without having to go out and do that. So I don't recommend that.
No, yeah, I same thing, and it goes back again to when we were kids. We imagined being somebody else. To
Hmm.
us that was a fun exercise, and you imagined being that person, and you were that person for that particular time. You didn't have to have a school that taught you that. Well, you have to go full in, and you have to understand the motivation. You were just playing. You were playing,
Yeah, absolutely.
pretending, imagining, and we as actors have all of this kind of information that helps guide us and also misguide us. And at
Mm.
some point, we start filtering all of that out and coming back to, okay, this is what I like doing, this is what I'm good at, and I can just do it.
Yeah, and that's why it's called a play. You
Yeah,
act in a play. So
yeah,
and society and growing up to be, from childhood into adulthood, children play, and then as adults we kind of lose that, and oh no, you can't do that, that's not very adult like, or it's but you should never really kill that child inside you. You should always let it out.
yeah. And be childlike. One of the guests that I had on the program was saying that I really never want to lose being childlike, not
Absolutely.
not being a child, but being childlike. So
Yeah, childlike, not childish.
yeah, I also
Yeah.
think that it's interesting that in life in general, and you alluded to that just a moment ago, but we kind of have three phases in life: when we're children and we're just ourselves. We are
Hmm.
ourselves. We're not worried about what the world thinks of us until a certain point. And then when we're very, elderly, then we get to a point where we stop caring what the world thinks of us and we become ourselves again. And for the majority of our lifetimes, we are much more restricted and worried about what the world perceives us and what is okay and what is not okay, that we don't allow ourselves to be true.
Hmm.
And it's unfortunate. So through acting, it's one of the things that allows you to be more like yourself earlier on in that process so you can actually enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I alluded earlier to, for acting to, I could be an astronaut or whatever, and that's what kids do. They play around and they're like, I'm going to be, an astronaut today, or I'm going to be a policeman or whatever. And, that's kind of, already ingrained in them. And, we have to go back to acting school to learn how to do that again, which is, that's,
We don't.
wouldn't it be great if we didn't have to? We're already
Yeah,
there.
I keep on, I'm not sure that I've made that conclusion yet because there's a lot of value to acting education, but
Absolutely.
I keep going back to a part that we need to change the way that acting education is done in order
Mhm.
not to get actors into terrible habits that take them years to get out of.
Yeah, yeah, and it's funny because you know, I can be watching something on TV or a movie or whatever, and you know, you can tell. I mean, for me, because I've been through Stella Adler and I've had a strong connection to the school, but I can see actors on TV, and I'm like, they've not really had any training. They're just kind of like walking you through it. But then, like, to counter that, I saw a production of The Price by Arthur Miller with Mark Ruffalo on Broadway. And the beginning of that play, the whole first 5 minutes is literally Mark's character walking into this, for people who don't know the story, this old furniture store that his father used to run that he's passed away, and Mark's character has come back to the furniture store after his passing. And the first 5 minutes, so Stella has a thing called living in the space, which is, you know, you walk into a room and you have a connection to that room somehow. So you've either been there before and it's familiar to you, in which case, you know, that's great, or it's somewhere you haven't been before and you have to kind of discover it. But as the actor, obviously you've been rehearsing and you're like, okay, this is where that prop is and that's where that door is and so on. But as a character, you don't know, or you do know, and you have a reason to be in that room. And so the first 5 minutes of this play, Mark walked in and he was looking around the room, and, you know, he was like, oh, there's that piece of furniture that, you know, the chair my dad used to sit in and that kind of thing. And having learned Stella's technique, I could see him applying that and using that. And it was really great because there was no dialogue. The first 5 minutes was just silence and him connecting and living in the space. And, you know, that was such a great moment. It was the opening of the play that it really drew you in. And I think that was such a great moment, and, you know, using that technique. And yeah, I think, you know, that was kind of the flip side to actors who haven't had any training. You know, Mark's trained at Stella Adler, and you know, he's a great actor, and you can tell. So yeah, that's kind of the flip side to going to drama school or not.
Yeah, Mark is amazing, and he's one of the people that can do drama and comedy and be true and grounded in both, which is
yeah, absolutely. And he's actually doing a play reading this weekend. You can find it online, a live read of a new play online, and the proceeds for those tickets go to Stella Adler as well, which is really great. So
that's wonderful.
yeah,
I'll
you can
see if
Google
I
that.
can find it, and we'll link it below this.
Great.
So let me write that down. Mark live reading. Okay, I will look that up. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Great.
Sounds great. All right, let's talk about producing, because again,
Great.
it seemed like acting was kind of your first love, but you started your career more on the producing side.
Yes.
I have heard you talk about this a little bit, but I'm not sure I have that answer quite yet. What was that led you specifically to producing? Was it not having the roles that you wanted and then you had to create them for yourself? Was it a friend that asked you to produce something? How did that start for you?
Well, yeah, so I started acting. My first kind of taste of acting was at school. I was 10 and I was in a school play, and I didn't get the part I wanted. That was, you know, my first rejection and my first play. I was very sad about that. But you know, once I did the play, I was like, oh, this is fun, and I really enjoy this. And then, you know, I got a little older and I did more plays, and I was like, okay, great, I'm going to do this as a career, and, you know, this is something I want to pursue. So I went to college and I did film and theater. I did a BA, and did a little bit of acting and a little bit of filmmaking in college, you know, practical, but it was mostly theoretical. So it was genre and theater history and a mix of stuff. But yeah, I graduated and I wanted to, you know, be an actor and a director. Actually, was my goal at that point. And so I started a production company. I was like, I'm going to make my own stuff. I'm going to put myself in things that I make. I'm going to direct things. But, you know, it was fine until it's like, okay, well, now I need the projects. How do I get that? And, you know, I could go out to writers and they're like, okay, but I have the script, but no one to make it. And then I kind of fell into producing that way, because it was like, well, if I want to make the projects, I have to produce them. So, yeah, at that point, I kind of was like, all right, well, there's all these projects coming in and I'm producing this and I'm producing that and I'm producing that. and the writers would say, oh, there's a director attached or whatever, and that it would be a film that I'm not really suitable for acting wise. And so kind of left acting to the side a little bit, but still involved. I would go to the theatre. Like, we have a tiny little theatre in Wellington in New Zealand called Bats Theatre, which really great kind of starting point for a lot of people in New Zealand, to put on like experimental plays, like try out new things, and so on. And I was going there kind of sometimes 2-3 times a week, which was amazing, but also me sitting in the audience going, but I want to be on the stage too. So I had 10-ish years of producing under my belt, and I was like, it's time to get back to the acting. So yeah, that was when I made the move to LA and went to Stella Adler.
I get you. So let's catch people up a little bit. So you were born in New Zealand, then you spent some childhood in UK, then you came back to New Zealand for school, and then you went, I think, through UK back to LA, or I think just from New Zealand to LA, correct?
Yeah, New Zealand to LA. Yeah. So I have I've been fortunate enough to live in all different places, and growing up in the UK, I didn't really know New Zealand because I left when I was 4. I actually spent 3 years living in Virginia when I was a little child, before we moved to the UK. So I've kind of lived all over, but hadn't really experienced living in New Zealand, from memory point. So I decided to go back to college there. My family was all there. My mom still lives in England in the same village we moved to 30-ish years ago. She's still there, so I get to go back and visit her, when the world allows you to travel. And then I moved to LA after a few years of being in New Zealand. It was like, okay, well, now it's time to go to the acting school and try and make movies and whatever in the US and break through here.
Gotcha. And again, we all know of films that are done in New Zealand. We all watch them. They're some of the biggest grossing films.
Yes.
So why LA as opposed to stay in New Zealand and try to grow within that part of the industry?
Well, I still have my production company there. We still work on projects, but it was more the acting school. I really wanted to find a school that, first of all, resonated with me. We have some great acting schools in New Zealand, but they're kind of 4-year degree programs, or kind of a mixture of different techniques and different things. So I really wanted to, and I also really wanted to be in LA. I was like, if I'm gonna be an acting school, I want to be making connections, and this is where the movies happen mostly. That does happen in New Zealand, as you said, and we all know about Lord of the Rings and all those other things, which is fantastic. But I really wanted to experience living in LA and working in LA, and just kind of expand my network a little bit. Like, New Zealand's a very small country, and it's a much smaller film industry, and so it's great the productions come to New Zealand, but it's a very small pool. So I really wanted to try out, and like Lord of the Rings and productions like that is fantastic, and they're great, but I wanted to start smaller. I wanted to start on indie films and doing that kind of thing. So this was kind of the perfect place, and then I found Stella Adler and the perfect school. And the great thing about Stella Adler is also that they don't have an audition process to get in, and I think that's really great, because there are people who want to be actors who want to learn, but to audition to get in, you kind of have to have experience. You have to know how to audition, but that's something that the school will teach you when you get in, how to audition. So it's kind of like, well, if I can get in without having to audition, they can teach me that. And that's, that really drew to me as well. That was really important, because I'd done acting at school, but I'd never really auditioned to get into a drama school and, all that kind of stuff. So I was like willing to learn, but I just needed that opportunity to get in the door, and then you can teach me how to audition. And there's a great audition skills class at Stella Adler, which is real life replication of, you know, back when the world was open, you know, being in the room and casting directors and all that kind of stuff. It's a great class, and you kind of learn that process at school as opposed to knowing it before you go in.
That's true. That actually brings up a bunch of questions for me because, again, being a producer, you've been involved in casting. So, you
Yeah.
know, being on the other side, did that give you
Hmm.
any insight in something that you're using now as an actress that helps you?
Yeah, so it's interesting because you know, here in the US, especially in LA, we have, you know, Actors Access and Backstage and all these resources that actors can submit auditions to. And I'm working on a TV pilot right now, and just before everything shut down, we had auditions for some casting for the show, and we had 300 submissions for each character. That, you know, it was a lot.
Yeah.
And people would send in their submission tapes, and you kind of look at it and go, okay, well, did you even know what you're doing? Like, we had one person who auditioned and we sent them the script and they were doing something completely different. Like, this isn't even our scene, this is something else. And then just started, like, he started yelling at the camera and like getting really angry and aggressive, and we're like, whoa, what is this? Like, it was very, very interesting. And you know, the way that people start their auditions, like, you know, when you do your slate and then you say, you know, you start the scene, how people start off. And you can tell, you know, a lot of them were just phoning it in, I guess. And we picked half a dozen out of the 300 that were like, okay, well, these are actually not bad. Like, we understand this is a self-tape, and we understand that you're in your house and you've got, like, you know, you're not a camera person and so on. We understand that. And especially as a producer, you're going, okay, well, the lighting's not great, but we know that, you know, you don't have a lighting kit or whatever. So yeah, like being an actor and then casting things, and you look at other people's self-tapes and you go, okay, I know not to do that in my self-tapes now because this is terrible. And oh, but that was good, so I'm going to take that tip. So it's kind of works both ways. Like, as an actor, you go, oh, well, that was a good self-tape, but then as a producer, you go, these are terrible. So yeah, it's interesting. Being able to use both sides is actually really quite useful in casting. And you know, you see a lot of different actors and you get to meet a lot of people. So yeah, it's good being both sides.
I think so. And again, in terms of networking in general, in terms of not just learning, but networking, and as a producer, it's
Mm-hmm.
all about making sure that you understand a lot of different people because you never know, you know, what project they may be a best fit for. So it just
Yeah.
gives you a lot of exposure.
Yeah, I mean, the guy that sent in the tape that was not the scene that he was supposed to do and was just yelling at the camera, we're like, that's great. If we ever need someone who's really angry and needs to scream at someone, we'll pick him. But for this scene, it wasn't quite what we were looking for. Yeah, you kind of get to know a lot of people, you know, especially actors, and especially going through places like Stella Adler and you know, working on movies and TV shows or whatever. You meet a lot of other actors and you go, oh, great, you know, I'd love to work with you again. I'd love to work with you on something. And you kind of get your little community together. And, you know, I use the same camera guy on all my projects now. I use the same sound guy or the same director. And, you know, you kind of have your little family. And yeah, being a producer means that you're able to make great work happen because you get to know the people around you. And you know, if they're good, then they'll stick around. And if they're not, then you find someone else.
Yeah, and it just, you have so many things to worry about. It just saves you time when you know that this cameraman understands you and understands what you're looking for. It just makes things easier, and you know, you're not wasting time and money, which as a producer you have to raise.
Yeah. Like, I had one. This is back when I was in film school, and I went to USC to their summer program, and we cast an actor in the scene, and the scene was part of the scene was to hit. He was supposed to hit his girlfriend, and he didn't want to hit the actress. He's like, I don't do that. But I'm like, yes, but your character does. So, you know, and it wasn't really hitting her. It was the stage slap or whatever it was. But he's like, no, I'm not going to do that. And so, you kind of go, well, that's great, but you're not going to go very far if you're not willing to kind of put yourself there. And so you learn the actors who are willing to do things, and who are like, yeah, no, I'll jump in and I'll do that, even though that's not in the script or whatever. You can trust them and their instincts as well.
Because it's really all about trust, and that's one of the things. Talking to casting directors, talking to producers, what I hear most often is they're not necessarily looking for the most talented and the most well-known person out there, unless there needs to be a star attached to a project. They're looking for somebody that they like, that they want to have on set, that they want to be around, and that can be a professional and deliver what needs to get done. So
yeah,
that seems to be
absolutely. Yeah, and I think that and I say this a lot when people ask me questions, being an actor and a producer, if I'm an actor on set but I have the producing experience, or I understand the workings of a set going on behind the scenes, there's a lot of waiting around for setups to be taken, and camera setups and so on. And a lot of actors are like, why is this taking so long? I'm bored, like I'm just going to goof around. I don't know why we're just waiting. Like, there's a lot of actors who are kind of all about themselves and like, I'm waiting, hurry up so I can do my work. And I think as a producer, and knowing how everything works backstage, and how everything is, can go wrong and does go wrong, I'm like, okay, I understand. There's an issue going on. A light doesn't work, or something happens, or something else is holding up the setup, or like an actor hasn't turned up to set or something like that. And I, as an actor, I go, okay, well, something's going on. This is going to take another, I don't know, like an hour. I'm going to be able to sit here and relax, because I'm not going, oh, am I on yet? Am I on yet? Am I on yet? There's a lot of me. And I can sit and I can go over my lines, or I can, go and get another cup of coffee from craft services or whatever, because I'm calm enough in the knowledge of what's going on, and that the people behind the scenes can trust I trust what they're doing. So I really find that being a producer when I'm an actor is really helpful, and it kind of makes my work better as an actor. And then the other side as well, like as a producer, I'm busy running around, I'm trying to like troubleshoot everything, or like, and we're waiting for things to happen. And I understand what the actor needs to do their job as well. So, a lot of actors get a bad reputation because they're like, well, I need this in my trailer. And it's not that they're, trying to be difficult. It's, I need what I need to be able to do my work. And, if that is, and some actors say, you can't call me by my real name, you have to call me by my character name, so I stay in character. And, and some people think that's a bit pretentious and like, stop being a diva, like, but you need what you need to do to make your work more authentic and better than, what it could be. So yeah, as a producer, I really understand the actor's needs as well, which is, I think, having knowledge on both sides is really both fascinating and helpful in my work.
Got it. I agree completely. So if you, and thankfully you don't have to pick one, but if you had to pick one, and producer versus an actor, and you have to introduce yourself as one only, which one would that be?
I think right now it would be actor, just because that's where I want to get more work of. I really love producing, but I want to grow as an actor, and I want to experience more as an actor.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's, as you said, I don't have to choose. Luckily, I'm so thankful. My both jobs are both so amazing, and full of so much. They bring me so much joy every day, and if I'm on set, doesn't matter what I'm doing, that's my happy place. So yeah, both.
And for people who are not as familiar kind of with the industry, and there are all sorts of levels that people are at, but from the purely compensation perspective, which one of your two jobs is paying better than the other?
Neither.
That is understandable. Yes.
Yeah. It really does depend. Like, I'm working on a TV pilot right now, a great show. My best friend and roommate Michael Benzea has written this great pilot, and that's great because we live together, we can work on it and everything, all the time. So yeah, we're working on this TV pilot, and if I'm working on this right now for nothing because this is the passion project, and we're putting together a trailer, we're trying to shop it around. Once it gets picked up, then I'll get paid. But right now it's like, okay, I'm doing this because I need the job. So, or I want this to be seen, and I want to work on this. And so once, someone's seen it and goes, great, like now we're going to make it into a series, that's when I get paid. But there's a lot of that, even in acting, a lot of acting is deferred payment. You're like, I'm going to get $100 a day from SAG, but not until this sells, and then they start making money, then I get paid. So, it really depends on the project. But then, if you get hired as a producer, here's the project, and we're going to pay you X amount a week, then, the money's up front, which is great. But yeah, it's a tricky situation. You have to not be in it for the money.
Yeah, that's
yeah,
that's the right statement. You got to be in this because you love it, and everything else
absolutely.
eventually, hopefully, maybe will come.
Yeah, and I've been fortunate because I have been working my whole life, and I haven't had to take a day job. I haven't had to wait tables or anything like that, which I'm so thankful for, because a lot of people in this town, especially, they have to make rent and they have to pay bills, and my side job is producing, so that's really, really great. But yeah, I'm so fortunate, I'm so blessed to work with the people I do and be in my situation. So yeah, I wake up every day, I'm like, thankfully I'm here where I am. So
yeah, no, it's absolutely. So what's next for you? I know you mentioned that you're working on some pilots and you're pitching some things. Is the next few years here in LA, or, and I say here as if I'm in LA, I'm in Chicago. I meant that more in the, you're gonna think of staying in LA, or you're gonna go explore Australia, which is closer to New Zealand and also has a movie.
Yeah. I mean, the plan right now is to stay in LA. As I said, I have a few things in production, or things we're trying to get made. One is a TV pilot, one is a docuseries, which will, if everything goes to plan and the world opens back up, we'll be traveling all over the world with that. And yes, thank you. Yeah, that's a series I'm really excited about as well. It's a medical-based docuseries.
Nice.
And again, I'm working with Michael on that, and so yeah, we have a few projects in development, and if all goes to plan, we'll be in LA, or the TV pilot of the TV series is set in New York, so we'll probably be, hopefully, fingers crossed, spending time in New York and doing things over there. He's from New York originally, so that's great. And yeah, a lot happening, but kind of nothing happening right now until the world is back to some kind of normal level of But yeah, the plan is to stay in LA, or be in New York for the pilot, and then yeah, we'll see. Maybe I go and do a movie in Australia, or we'll see.
Was there a part of you during this period of COVID that said, "Oh, I wish I was back in New Zealand"?
I mean, New Zealand's handled the whole situation so well, which is amazing. But I was like, I just don't want to. If I didn't have to get on that plane and sit for 12 hours and then do the quarantine thing, I would have been like, I would have gone home. But I'm like, you know what? I'm probably safer staying in my apartment or my house in LA and not going out and just being safe than traveling and doing that whole thing. But
I agree.
Yeah, so hopefully I'll get home soon.
I hope so too. And thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate you sharing your wisdom with us. Best of luck on all of your upcoming projects.
Yep.
Stay safe.
It's been a lot of fun. Great talking to you.
Likewise, thank you. And thanks to everybody for tuning in. We appreciate you joining us in another episode of The Love of Acting. We know you love it as much as we do, and that's why we do this for you. Thank you.